it and how it might affect us?
I've gone out to 3 different banks. We did Meredith Village Savings Bank, Northway Bank, and TD Bank to get some rates. I asked for quotes on $1.1 million to borrow. The rest of the money would come from the town funds that are already there, plus the fundraising that the trustees have done. And I asked for 5, 7, and 10-year financing. It's a relatively small amount of money in the grand scheme of things. Northway Bank came back with rates of 2.3, 2.5, and 2.75%, based on the small amount of money in the short terms. Obviously, the 2.3% is for 5 years. The 2.75 is for the 10 years. The quotes from TD Bank were 3.25, 3.50, and 3.75, so a point higher. And Meredith Village was just a little bit higher than that. Northway Bank, as you might remember, we used to finance the fire department, the fire station. Great bank to work with. There's no prepayment penalty should there be a time where we wanted to pay a little bit more principal or whatever. There's no penalties involved. And the entire bank origination fee, closing costs and all, is $350. So Northway Bank certainly is would be my preferred choice, obviously, if we're going to go with one of the local banks. The other question that came up was, well, how about the bond bank? Because the bond bank is out there. The problem with dealing with the bond bank is there's a lot of upfront application fees, thousands of dollars for application fees. They only sell their bonds in July and December, and they can't tell you what the rate is today. They won't know that until they actually sell the bonds in July, and that money is not available until July. The other thing is with the bond bank, you have to take all that money at once. So when you sign the paperwork, they send you a check for the $1.1 million, and you start paying interest on that day. With Northway Bank, we can draw this money down until it's gone, and then start the amortization from there. So Northway Bank, or any one of the local banks, is a better option. The Northway Bank certainly seems to be the better option. In looking at between 5 and 10 years, you're looking at adding, I've done some rough calculations of 2.5 to 4 cents to the tax rate. So that's what this project is going to wind up costing. Obviously a little less up front if we go 10 years, but 5 years obviously is a pretty short term, and we can get this thing paid off fairly quickly that way. So, yeah.
Whose decision is it which option to use?
It's up to the selectmen to decide not only what bank to go with and also the terms of the loan. So, but they won't make that decision until it's actually approved at town meeting. But once it's approved, then they can go back. My recommendation would be for the selectmen, probably within the next 3 weeks maybe, to lock in a rate. The 2.3 was quoted last month. I don't think, I wouldn't expect it to change a whole lot, but they couldn't give me a lock rate until it's actually approved at town meeting. But they can lock it in a week or two before town meeting, and then if it's approved, that's the rate that's locked in going forward.
And Jack, with the bond, there's no early payoff possible.
Right. With the bond, if you go to the bond bank, once you get that money, if you take it for 10 years, you have to pay it off in 10 years. There's no option for you to pay it off early, which I think is something that we did that with when we bought the gold property. We also financed that through Northway Bank, and town finances allowed the selectmen to pay that off a year early, so we saved some interest money there. So having the option to be able to pay it off or pay down a little more interest if you want any given year, you can certainly do that.
Jack, I just want to make sure I heard you correctly. You say it was for the Northway Bank at for 10 years, it's $250,000 a year?
Yes.
So my taxes for a house, it'd be $5 for a house that was assessed at $200,000.
Right.
A year.
$5.
A year.
Correct.
$5 a year?
Right.
If your house is valued at
Yeah,
$250,000,
$200,000
so if your
house
house
is
is
gonna cost you
valued at
about
less,
about
or
$5
more,
a year.
you can just figure it that way.
At 2.5 cents
Per thousand.
So, I mean, it's a bargain, it really is, and this is the right time to do it. Construction costs are only gonna go up. And I think it's a right time to do it.
Jack, you mentioned, well, I'm kind of concerned that, I think interest rates are going to be pretty volatile
Yeah.
in the next 60-day period. Is there any way that we could take some steps without violating, town rules to lock ourselves in with the bank? You mentioned something to the effect that the closing costs were very minimal.
Yeah, the closing costs, yeah.
I mean, could we do an application that is for the $350 and
You
just
can,
get
yeah,
ourselves
you
locked
can,
in?
Northway Bank will allow us to call, town meeting is the 14th
Yeah.
of March. So after next Wednesday, which is the 14th, or Tuesday, whatever it is.
Wednesday.
Jack.
Wednesday. Don't forget
Don't
Jack.
forget Jack, it's Valentine's Day.
Yes.
So really, within a 30-day window, they'll lock us in with a 30-day guarantee.
Yeah, okay.
So you're right. I think after sometime at the end of next week, if the selectmen wanted to pick Northway Bank and pick a time frame, not again, they can't do anything legal
Exactly.
until it's passed at town meeting.
Right.
But they can certainly send the application in.
Yeah.
If it's not approved at town meeting, then the application goes away and nothing
Sure.
happens.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
But you're absolutely right. I think if the sooner we can lock it in, the better off we are.
Yeah.
Right.
Jack, you're in touch with what's going on in schools and other things as well.
Yeah.
There's this big gorilla sitting behind me in this closet in the form of a House bill to reinstate a form of donor towns. Should that go through, do you have any idea what the impact would be on Tuftonboro?
Well, if you're talking about the one that, well, there's a couple of them, and I think the one bill that was just killed in committee was to change the funding formula for all cooperative cooperative school districts. That would have raised our school portion by a little over $3.3 million.
But that was killed.
And our cost per student would have gone up to
Yeah.
about $35,000 per student. That was killed in committee 19 to nothing.
All right.
So that was a good.
Yay.
Thank you very much. It's been a concern.
There's another one, though.
But I will say that particular bill was co-sponsored unfortunately by Glenn Cordelli, who's
Yes.
our rep.
Well,
which-
we have
I
spoken to him.
have to say that he did initially,
Yeah,
and he read the text, and he withdrew his
Yeah, I
support,
know.
and he voted against it.
Yeah, and he couldn't.
He's on the committee, he voted against it.
All right.
Well, my feeling about that is, and not to get into an argument about it, but my feeling is you don't put your name on a bill unless you know what you're putting your name on for.
Well, that's certainly but the fact is that he voted against it.
But there are a whole bunch of other bills out there. The state continues to take money from the school districts for the state's benefit. That's a battle that we have at the school district all the time.
Right.
The state used to pay 35% of the retirement cost. Now the state pays 0. You guys, everyone here in this room is paying for that. The state's taking money away. They're also taking 4% of our stabilization money every year for the next 10 years or 15 years. Again, I think last year there was only $170,000 in the grand scheme of things, not a lot, but everyone in this room is paying a piece of that.
Right.
And there's additional money for the bill that's out there for school choice. Whether you're for or against school choice, that's money that would come out of our school district, paying for people who go to private schools and all that. That's it's still out there, it hasn't been voted on yet.
Well, I'm always concerned about the amount of money, separate that we have to pay that isn't totally under the selectmen's or the voters' control
Right.
per se.
Right.
That big one was really concerning to me.
It really was.
Yeah, but Guy, there is another bill that you just mentioned, it's the stabilization.
Yep, stabilization
Yeah.
grant, and the state gives stabilization grant to offset the demographics in different communities and all that, and the state now is taking 4% of that away from all school districts over the next 20 years or whatever it is. So the state continues to take more and more money away, but I think getting away from the school district business, you know, this is a bargain, I think, for interest rates. I think we've got to do it now, get this done, and at a 2.3 or 2.75% interest rate, I don't think we can go wrong.
Couldn't argue with that interest rate, that's for sure.
And plus the fees. The other banks that I talked to, now, granted, all these closing costs are not that expensive, but $350 for Northway Bank, Meredith Village, they said was probably $750, $800. TD Bank is about the same. So Northway Bank is certainly a friend of the municipalities that they did move at this point.
Interesting.
Thanks.